Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 27th Help Save Our World online speakers meeting. The topic for today is the flow. What are they? What is your place within them? Where are they heading and taking you and taking all of us? How do they affect you and all of nature around you? And which flows do you choose to be one with, join, and flow with? It's wonderful to have you here today. My name is Denis, the teacher, and I will be your host for the next hour. So let's start with brief introductions. Let's start with you, Kurt.
Okay, so you know my name. I go by that almost all of my life. And I work to embody what my name is. So I'll be curt with my words here and just say I'm also a teacher. And along with that, I'm also a learner. So I'm really happy to be living in that paradigm of life and roles for me the past many years.
Excellent. Thank you. Brendan, can you introduce yourself?
I'm Brendan. I'm part of this project in order to help change the world, but not only that, but also to help start up the eco villages and continue to keep them running over the years.
Thank you so much, Brendan. Alex, can you please introduce yourself?
I'm Alex. I'm Denis's daughter and Brendan's fiance, and I am here to initiate the Eco Village startup and to get that rolling and help save the world together.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Alex. Now, let me take you on a thought journey. Your house is on fire. I see in my mind's eye lights burning unnecessarily in all the cities around the world. I see the forests burning. I see the Amazon, the Congo, and other jungles around the world burning. I see the biomass plants chopping down trees with machinery and burning them for electricity. Death-based consumption systems, killing, destroying habitat, driving extinction, and causing more and more desertification. Our once living planet is dying. I see the coal burning, petrol, diesel, gas, and nuclear power stations burning stuff for energy, for electricity, to keep the lights and the heaters on, all accelerating in their consumption and production of electricity. Greta Thunberg was right. Our house is on fire. Just look at an astronaut's view of the planet at night, and you will see it too. We are killing the living ecosystems which we depend upon for life, thus driving ourselves to extinction at an exponentially accelerating rate. My next story. Going with the flow and not making waves. From the safety of the land, I watch a boat full of people flowing gently down the stream. I call out to them, "It's not safe to float down these waters." They laugh at me. "Don't spoil our fun." I notice as the boat slowly picks up speed, as the streams join together to form rivers. But the people on board don't seem to have noticed any change, although from the bank I notice the boat is moving faster and faster as more streams and rivers join together into one major fast-flowing river. I call out to them, "Please listen to me. It's not safe to float down these rivers." They ignore me, laying out on the deck at sun tanning. I look back upstream and I notice clouds forming and heavy rains falling. The boat is now moving faster, racing up and down on standing waves in a raging muddy torrent, racing downriver. I call out to them, "Please come ashore now before it's too late. It's not safe on these rivers." Some people on board have become a bit concerned and start to tell others on board that there's something going wrong. Others sit quietly because they don't want to make waves. Then suddenly they find themselves racing over a water horizon, down rapids, going ever faster and faster. They hang on for dear life, only just to manage to survive the rapids. They all fall around on the boat, laughing. Ha ha ha, so excited. Then the boat slows as the flow spreads out across the plains, and they begin to relax again, enjoying the scenery as they float slowly downriver. I shout out to them one more time, "Your lives are in extreme danger. Please come ashore now before it's too late." But they're not listening anymore. The calmer waters have given them a sense of calm before the river enters a narrow gorge with sheer cliff faces on both sides, where the waters race even faster and the rapids become more and more intense. Now they cannot stop the boat anymore. The people are thrown into the water. Unfortunately, now they cannot get to shore and climb out anymore. I watch, petrified, knowing that I can do nothing more to save them. As their overturned boat approaches the waterfall and disappears, then I watch each one of them until I see them no more. Wouldn't it have been better to have woken up earlier, listened to me, and done something? At least paddling out of the flow of the current to the shore when they still could have. I tried to save them, but every one of us has free will and the ability to choose for ourselves. I cannot choose for them. Are you going with the flow, or are you taking responsibility for your life and making the difficult choices to go against what everyone else is saying and doing, then deciding on the future you desire and deserve, and plotting your own course? And of course, who are you listening to? And what are you doing to change the flow of your life? Story number 3. Riding the train of thought to extinction. Most of us are riding the train of thought called civilization or empire, infected with the thought plague and racing towards that cliff of extinction. Without thinking or questioning, we just do as we are told and believe it's the right thing to do. Why would they lie to us? They have no idea what the reason for, meaning, or purpose of life is. We just give our lives away to others without thinking and without choosing for ourselves. We're chasing that education carrot. Why do they push that so hard as being the greatest thing since sliced bread? We're chasing the money carrot and the success carrot and the ownership of things carrot and the qualifications carrot and the car and the house and the picket fence carrots. All carrots to keep the happy donkey trotting along without questioning, thinking, or choosing something else. We're running on that treadmill ever faster and faster, more and more for less and less, overworked, overstressed, until one day we are so unfit, overweight, have cancer, or are just too old to function at that level anymore, which comes very fast. Our life's energy is just spent. When you're lying there on your deathbed, what do you think about when you think about your life? Was my life well spent? Truly living, playing, singing, dancing, learning, growing up healthy and strong, and living a happy life while making a meaningful contribution and difference to create a better world for future generations? No. What I have achieved and at what expense to my life and my children's lives and the life of the planet? As Howard Zinn said, you cannot be neutral on a moving train, or as I say, you cannot stand still on a moving train. The only way to stop that inexorable movement to your demise and the extinction of all life on this planet is to think, question, make choices, and get off that train of thought and learn how to create a better future. That's the end of my stories. As the first speaker, could we please welcome Kurt?
Good. Well, there were a couple of different takes on flow there I hadn't gone with. So I like that. Certainly one of the perspectives I was going to cover was flow as the drift, as the already existing civilization that we're born into, whether it's the mega civilization or our own family. There's already a drift that's in motion when we're born. And we kind of learn how to adapt to that as we get either domesticated or trained to think on our own. And sometimes we need to go through one to get to the other. So that flow of just going with the trend of living a life of comfort, because you can avoid pain by doing that, versus a different distinction that I have of flow, which is a happiness that's born of being fully immersed in the task or the experience. Like most things in life, there seems to be a duality of how we use words and the concepts. At one point, it's great to go with the flow of your team, or if we are looking to create something together. And often the concept of flow is in conjunction with somebody else. So it doesn't have to be, but oftentimes that is, especially flow at work. And then there are other times where we want to stand up to the flow and say, no, I'm not participating, as Denis mentioned. Again, there are many different ideas about flow. Let me just get a nod of your head. Have any of you heard of Mihai Csikszentmihalyi?
Yeah.
Name doesn't ring a bell? Okay, I'll just give you a brief setup. He is attributed with creating the phrase "in the flow," whether that's actual or not. He started writing about the concept of flow, I don't know, maybe in the 70s, maybe even before that. He had studied Carl Jung's work and got into, of course, the stream of the collective consciousness and that whole aspect of it. He's just written many books, so I'll post his name because it's not an easy one to spell or to pronounce. But his concept of flow, and I'll just read you the quick definition of it, is flow is a state of concentration and engagement that can be achieved when conducting a task that challenges one's skills. Okay, now that's a very scientific, sterile kind of definition of it. However, I think if we kind of expand it into a couple of different areas, we can see how it makes sense. So taken at his basic, and there are models that he's created, there's a grid of challenge and a grid of skills. And what Mihai suggests is that when we are up in the quadrant of high skills and high challenge, we can experience flow. And the other areas that go up that graph with different experiences, they can go from worry, anxiety, apathy down in the corner when you have low skills and low challenge, up to control and relaxation and arousal as you get farther up, either with challenge or with skill. So if we think about it, when you're operating at optimal skill set and you're applying those skills in a challenging area, you experience, or one experiences, a certain level of success, right? You're confident in your ability to accomplish it because you have the skills, and you've maximized the application of those skills by being able to accomplish something maybe beyond your reach or at a higher level of just normal comfort. So if we take a look at that, I'm going to apply it then to some personal experiences. I was a musician for a number of years in my teens and 20s. There were times when I was working with the group, so it's a team, where just my skill level and what we were looking to accomplish together, whether it was a jam or creating a song or something like that, were just so intense that there was nothing else going on but that activity. So it's mentioned that flow, often time is irrelevant when one is in flow, as it compresses or expands or whatever it does for you. So that there is no other existence but this. So it kind of brings to mind total focus, total immersion, and a willingness and happiness, or actually happiness is what gets created out of that experience. Now, one other thing that Mahai suggests is that, especially when he applies flow to work, is that there's a clear objective that one is up to in it. It can happen haphazardly. Many times I've walked in the woods and just gotten into the flow of being there. I guess at some point I made a decision to walk in the woods, and it was an objective of experiencing the woods. But at work, what Mahai suggests is that we have maybe a job or an objective that we look to accomplish. And by being a willing participant in that and maximizing our skills and abilities to this, we get a certain satisfaction in the process of completing that particular objective. We're just in the flow of it. Now, that's just one example at work and with teams. Certainly, if we're writing poetry or creating a painting or taking a photograph and observing something very clearly in order to figure out the best way to shoot it, we're also in that flow as well. We take our skill set and we're applying it to a situation that may cause us to stretch. The good feeling comes from we are confident that we have the skills to do it. So it's not a question of self-judgment or self-worth or evaluation. It's just, I trust and accept I have the skills to do this, and I'm going to apply it, and we'll see at the end. But right now, when I'm in the process, I'm just going to go after it. So flow to me is that, as we all have heard, that zone, that focus, that ability to let our talents and skills and actions simply manifest without any conscious effort necessarily. Much of it is just that drawing of the unconscious or even the collective unconscious that supports us in accomplishing, living a fulfilling moment in this moment, however that might be. And I just wanted to apply Mahai's concept to flow. I found flow in doing, I'll say, cross-country running. Back in my 20s, when I was looking to get back in shape, I started to run, and after a couple of weeks, there was a point where I stopped feeling the pain and stopped feeling the stress of my breath, and they just came together, and the running became effortless. And it was interesting. I can still remember the place and visualize that where that breakthrough happened for me. Flow happens during sex, when one is fully connected in the moment with the partner. You know what you're up to. You're confident that and creating joy and happiness. As much as flow is a partnership or a team activity, it also comes from an intrinsic motivation. This is something I've chosen to do. It's not being imposed on me as something I have to do. So as we get into the flow, whatever activity it might be, I see that that's a critical component. Such as Dennis mentioned, at some point we stand up from the flow of the current of already existing and say, no, I have a different direction to go and I'm motivated to go in that direction. So some of it may be intuitive, but it definitely is intrinsic. And even at work, you get, I've chosen into this job, I've chosen into this project. If it's something that was forced on me, I could get the flow. And that's something that Mahai also mentioned, is that we can choose our conscious state and work towards flow. However, if we're looking for the motivation, it has to be ultimately from the inside. And I've chosen this, and I am willing to submit myself to this project. So I'll leave it there. I'm thinking that's about my 6 or 7 or 8 minutes. I don't know. But that's my take from a very scientific, cold approach to flow to how it really manifests in our life in so many different ways.
Excellent. Thanks, Kurt. That's such an interesting concept, and it brings back certain experiences in my life. I can remember when I was studying fine art at school, I would get the concept on the Friday afternoon from the teacher of what I was going to create a painting about. And literally from that moment until I walked back into school on the Monday morning, the weekend disappeared and I had this beautiful painting in my hands. And it's amazing how time actually stands still in those situations. Just another example was I was doing electronics with Unicorn Shipping Lines, and I was under the head of the electronics department, and he had to leave. And he set me up with this project before he left to go to Britain. And he said, okay, well, here's an open check, or order what you need, just get this project done. And I was literally building an amplifier, like this huge Sinclair amplifier, like this incredible design and everything, and creating everything, like the design, the PC boards, the whole project. And I just, like, money wasn't the limitation. There were no limitations. It was just do it. And for the period of time, I think it was like 2 weeks or whatever that he was gone, time stood still. I forgot about eating. I forgot about drinking. I forgot everything. Just seemed, look, I mean, I must have, but just everything seemed to become insignificant. I was just in this flow. So it becomes timeless, which is absolutely magical. So I really love the idea of this, like, individual conceptualization of flow. I focused more on the group and the societal flows, and there are so many different types of flow. So that's wonderful that you opened another aspect to this whole conversation. Thanks. Alex, would you like to go ahead?
I haven't prepared anything this week on flow. If you're flowing through your life's purpose, you've got 2 basic paths that we basically discussed last week. You can choose to feed the bad wolf, or you could choose to feed the good wolf. If you're traveling down a negative path in your life, redirect it, but make sure you're traveling the path that best suits you and flowing with the items that you are faced with. That's basically what I've got to say on flow.
I fully understand. Alex hasn't been feeling well this week, so she is being very kind to just be here. All right, Brendan, any ideas?
Well, I have not done anything in terms of preparation or anything either, as I've been taking care of Alex. Other than that, I would say that most people always say that you must just go with the flow. But sometimes the flow is not always a good flow to go with. And some people get that wrong. It's like they just live their life by going with the flow. But most of the time, what you have to do is decide on the flow, whether it's worth going with or not.
That's excellent. Wonderful. That's so true, how you can either be caught up in somebody else's flow, or in a civilization's flow, or a religious belief system or I don't know, whatever it is, that movement that you're caught up in, and just do what everyone else does because it's safe and it feels good to be part of the herd. But is it really benefiting you? And is it benefiting society and the world around you? These are really important questions to ask about the flow, which flow you're in, and so on. Lorna, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
What do you have to say about the flow, Lorna?
Well, actually, I was more prepared to talk about flaws.
Okay, go ahead.
First, I would like to start with the definition about what have I accomplished, or I'm going to start with my favorite definition of success. I don't know who coined this phrase, but I really like it. And success, it says, is someone that shows character under risk, which takes me to talk about flaws. I did investigated the flaws so I wouldn't get lost in translation. So flaws versus void, and what I would get is lack of, weakness, and so forth. So looking back in my life, I said, when I have been in a situation where flaws showed up, and how did I do to get out of that predicament that eventually got me to a flow, a good flow. So that's my trend of thought. So it definitely, when I became an immigrant by choice, I came to this country, and I thought I spoke English because I had a good level of English when I came. Yet I went through a cultural shock that made me forget about my skills, about my goals, and focus as a single mom to survive. So what did I do? When I start, what upset me first was the flaws that constantly people will look in me. The diction, the lack of communication, the way I looked. I came in the 80s, so there were not too many, Latins like now. So I went through a time that I almost believed I had a lot of flaws, to the point that I was saying, what am I going to do? It was like I had a masking tape on my mouth, the way I look and everything. So it was like maybe a year and a half or so, close to 2 years, that I allowed myself to dive into the perception of other people to look me as someone, that was not worth it, And of course, I had to adapt to the system, They didn't have to adapt to me. So one day the light bulb goes on when I was tired to do jobs that just about any job dignifies to me. But when I found myself doing jobs that I said, well, that's really not what really my passion, or I can do well, or I feel good about it. So I was willing to start from the bottom again. So I went and signed up to Sheridan Vocational, to whatever course. So I was available so I can practice English from the bottom again and start studying the people around me. So the computer literacy was one of them. It was, computers were different back then. It was a whole room, right? A computer. So I put myself, in that position. I started to allow, the embarrassment, but with a different view. And one thing took to the other one. I am starting to feel and believe that there was no flaw in me, flaws. There was nothing really wrong with me. And that was a starting point. And that's why I like that quote, because it's someone that show character under risk, risk or embarrassment, whatever, word is close to risk. the willingness to accept, but don't stop, it made me feel uncomfortable. And that was the way I got into my flow again, very slowly. It took me years, but that got me into that river. And I had a dream, that I wanted to teach again, and it took me 12 years, but it's what I love. So flaws, I battled with the topic at the beginning because the flaw is lack of weakness and stuff, and I don't want to focus again on weaknesses and lack of. So at this point in my life, of course, which is different from back then, I think I'm better off when I focus on my strengths and I can add to my life and others so I can just be what I meant to be here. And every day I'm very conscious of it, some days more than others, I have to admit. I'm very emotional right now. Brings back a lot of memories, but this is it. I avoid negative situations. I am aware, but I don't dive too much into it because it took a while to get there. That's what I have to say about flaws and how I got into the river.
Wow, that's awesome stuff. For me, it brings back these amazing memories. I too was, as far as I was concerned, from my life's experience, an extremely competent, extremely capable engineer and extremely good at everything I touched. It's just like everything I touched just worked out and was magical. Now, in Africa, there's a saying called a boer maak 'n plan. In other words, a farmer makes a plan. So not necessarily was everything I did this perfect, buying exactly this part and putting it into this place to create this perfectly aesthetically beautiful image of what was going on a yacht. I mean, if I was in a situation, the owners were arriving and the engines wouldn't start, and I sent my mate running up to the hotel to see if they had a 24-volt battery, and he arrived with one, and we started it. And the first time, the second time they didn't have that, so I raced off on a weekend to buy just a generic battery charger and brought it back to the boat and put it in, and we didn't have an issue from then onwards. But of course, the broker and the owner came waltzing through the engine room. It's like, ooh, what's that ugly thing, And I'm like, okay, well, I needed to get you going and make sure you had a great holiday. So I did what I had to do. And I had quite a few of these occurrences happen in these extreme situations. And every time I was made out to be this crazy, stupid person. And it totally destroyed me because, yeah, I was the best thing that you could possibly ever have if you were in a dire situation, because I would make a plan, I would work something out, and I would save your life. And of course, I was an exceptional swimmer and a lifesaver. I was the man to have on your boat. But over the years, they totally demoralized me and discredited me. And it was usually fools who had no idea about the circumstances and what actually took place. And they just judged me on the fact that it wasn't aesthetically beautiful and perfect, because, I could have put in this and I could have done that. And that actually destroyed me. So part of the reason why I left the US was I felt like I wasn't significant. I wasn't important. I was, I was useless in actual fact. So I had totally lost my confidence because of stupid people, just absolutely stupid people, and no idea of what damage they were doing to me as long as their egos were satisfied. Anyway, so I understand this concept of believing that you're not good enough when in actual fact you're absolutely amazing. So don't ever let people do that to you, and don't ever just accept that. I know it's hard, but you've got to believe in yourself. You're amazing. You're incredible. You've got to love yourself, and you've got to maybe overcompensate, but patting yourself on the back more often than you would normally do. But don't ever accept that. My pleasure. Kurt, we want to go ahead.
Great, thanks. Yeah. Lauren, I just wanted to share with you what I got from your sharing. And one of the first things I get about Lorna is that Lorna is in her own flow. You have your own drummer and you play it well. And this is a compliment, by the way. When you were talking about how you got distracted with flaw, right? And that's how you heard it, or that's what you picked up. To me, as you were talking, flaw is the absolute opposite of flow, right? Flaw is when you've muted your creativity, you've destroyed your self-confidence, you're not creating happiness, right? You're just thinking about, and as I see who Lorna is now, you are in the flow of what makes Lorna happy. You're in the flow of what allows Lorna to get past whatever experiences and beliefs you had in order to create a life that's happy for you right now, which is what flow is, right? At least to my definition. So that you created that that oxymoron of flow and flaw was perfect. Like, oh, I had no idea where you're going for the first couple of minutes. And then it just seamlessly went back to that. So thanks for doing that. And thanks for being you to share yourself confidently at the level and skill set that you have. And in some ways, this was a challenge for you to share some of your old experience because you had to go back into the flaw part in order to explain the flow part. So I just appreciate the authenticity that you bring as I'm Lorna. Yep, here I am. So that's my flow flaw, and I would not have had that distinction if you didn't contribute today. So thanks for that as well.
Thank you, Kurt.
Well, quite often when somebody has difficulty communicating, and I mean, I do this a lot, I have so many ums and ahs, and people tend to put up with me because maybe there's something in between. But in editing, when you go over what Lorna has to say, it's like, wow. It's absolutely amazing. I'm actually blown out the water every week when I go through and I edit. Of course, I start to sound better, and then just the ums and the ahs taken out, and the sort of like I'm thinking times. And when you reduce those and you take them out, Lorna gives us some exceptional stuff. Let me continue where I was going to start. Now, let me take you on a thought journey. These flows have been referred to as flows or metaphors of flows. For example, flows of humans living in cities, their feelings, their emotions, their thoughts, their behaviors. Think of them born into boxes, living in boxes, waking up to the alarm clock in the morning, eating quickly out of boxes, cornflakes box, milk box, jumping in their car, box, and rushing off to drop off their children at their school boxes, then racing to work where they work in their office boxes, elevator box, office to office box, moving from box to box their whole lives, only to die and to be put in a box. What were they thinking, doing, and why? Is that what living is? Is that what human beings are born on this planet to do? No, it's not. That's what you call existing out your life. More often than not, the only moments when they were truly happy was when they were playing outside as children, in the mud and in the dirt and the leaves and running around, or later on in life when they paid big money to go on a special packaged holiday, which maybe came in a box. If they were lucky, they would do that once a year. Getting out there in the wild, untamed nature experiencing the flowing, curvy, wavy, roundy messiness of nature is actually magical. These flows can be controlled paradigms, ways of thinking and living your life, which are followed and perpetuated because of fear and blind belief and institutionalized paradigms in motion. These flows can be thought of as literally trains of thought, the trends, the headings, the directions of life, or even civilizations. These very narrow trains of thought are on very controlled tracks of institutionalized thought control, which are racing all of us exponentially faster and faster towards the cliff of extinction. These thought trains can be thought of as thought plagues or diseases of the mind, which are far worse than the coronavirus because they institutionalized. Thus, they unconsciously passed on from generation to generation to generation. And they're embedded in the individual and societal psyche, and embedded in the individual and societal unconscious mind without a conventional cure. So they're much harder to cure, but there is a way. These thought plagues are so virulent that they rampantly infect the hearts and minds of people with fear, blind belief in abstract thoughts and ideas and lies, spreading much faster than the coronavirus. All around the world, they are taught through institutionalized education, religions, governments, media, and other power-based institutions, all leading us to our demise. The flow can be thought of as the flow of a river, as it is used in personal growth teachings. As you may have heard Kurt saying, rivers and boats flowing merrily, merrily, merrily down the stream. Life is just a dream. Even if you tie your boats together for strength in numbers, unknowingly you are flowing inexorably downstream, joining a swift flowing river which flows over raging rapids and over thundering waterfalls. Then there are flows of gangs, kingdoms, countries, empires, and civilizations. Civilization is a misnomer because of the uncivilized ways they are formed and maintained, and the disastrous effects they have on others, all life, and our world. And as examples, they're enforced through wars and plunder and destruction to get people into refugee camps and make them dependent on the people who are causing the problems in the first place. So, and then once the people are all now enslaved as forced labor slaves within the city, they are literally held there. And no matter how unhealthy the food is that comes in, or unhealthy the way of life, they're trapped within that system. And it's called civilization. That's uncivilized to me. This river flow is often generalized into one flow, just as like, oh, this is life, this is the way it is, as being the only inescapable way, which is untrue. That's because those in power don't want to lose their power to control the masses. That idea of freedom or not being part of their civilization is unthinkable in their minds. To them, that would be anarchy, That would be chaos. The people will all run around and kill themselves. When in reality, it's not. It's freedom of thought, freedom of choice, and the empowerment of the people with the disempowerment of those who honestly believe that they have the right to power. It is clearly necessary to separate these flows into distinctly different flows. The natural flows of ancient indigenous cultures who lived by the natural wisdom of nature in love, balance, and harmony with nature is the most important flow of life, sustainability that we all need to learn. The centralized uncivilizations where humans lived by abstract values and belief, lies and deception, and used and abused nature and one another to achieve centralized power and control is the undesirable flow. These completely different flows are heading in totally different directions. The one is heading to extinction, the other one's heading to a sustainable future in love, balance, and harmony with the flow of life. So one is love and life-based, empowering all life and nature, which is sustainable. The other is based on fear and blind belief that a minority considers themselves special, superior, and separate from all others and above nature, superior to nature. We have dominion over nature. No, you don't. You are nature. Believing that they are entitled to everything, thus can take, plunder, and war and get whatever they want in a limitless world. The system's fundamental purpose is to centralize wealth and power in the hands of a few at the expense of all life and Mother Earth. It's built upon the destruction of all other competing systems and absolute dependence upon their system. The flow of nature is the natural flow of energy of life within all living beings, within ecosystems, within Mother Nature and the universe, which is based on a natural wisdom that has always existed. And I refer to this as the magical symphony of life. Does anybody want to say anything before I continue? The magical symphony of life. What I refer to as the magical symphony of life is the main flow of nature. It's composed of combinations of patterns of energy flowing together in complex, cyclical, vibrating, and flowing motions, all functioning together to create and sustain life. Let me take you on some thought journeys of flow that show you different perspectives of life, our world, and the universe. Envision the magical symphony or flow within you as a living human being. At a subatomic level, energy is spinning together at 186,000 miles per second in an extremely small area of space, creating mass and atoms. Atoms combine together to form substances. Substances combine together to form cells. Cells combine to form organs and circulatory systems. They all combine to form you, a vibrating, living human being who is living and flowing through your life, who is a symphony of vibrations all functioning together with the single purpose to perpetuate your life in nature and the universe. Now, let's walk through natural, pristine jungle and notice all around you the living, growing beings, all forming the complexities of the whole ecosystems, from microorganisms to worms to grubs to bugs to the birds, the bees, the butterflies, and all the animals, and all of the microscopic plant life, and what we call weeds, not weeds, they're beautiful living beings, and all of the shrubs and the bushes and the huge canopy of forests, all of the mycelium and all of the ecosystems and the microclimates and everything, all functioning together as one complex ecosystem to ensure that life in that forest thrives. Now let's step out of the forest into nature on a planetary level. Focus on the synchronicity of all of the life-sustaining processes which are happening all around you, which combine together to form the living being we call Mother Nature. Think of the spinning planet, the ebb and flow of the tides, the flow of the waters of the ocean, the weather all around the planet, winds blowing. Then think of the water cycle, the rise of the moisture and then the flowing up to high altitude and the forming of clouds and then the rain falling, washing and cleaning the planet. Think of the trees in huge jungles all sucking the moisture from through their root systems up their trunks and into the branches and leaves, and transpiration of water into the air, and then through sequestering the carbon through photosynthesis and releasing oxygen in the atmosphere, creating the atmospheric oxygen that we need to sustain life. Then all the different levels of the atmosphere which warm and protect and maintain our living ecosystem. Then think of the rivers as the veins of the continents, feeding all of the different living organisms across the continents. We live in a living planetary flow, this flow of life, the ecosystem. Now step out into space to see it from a universal perspective. See it in the motion of our planet spinning through space at 1,040 miles per hour at the equator, while it turns every 14,000 years in its precession. It is orbiting the sun at 66,000 miles an hour, meandering through the galaxy at another 43,000 miles an hour, spinning on those spiraling arms of the Milky Way galaxy at 483,000 miles an hour, while the galaxy itself is flying through space at 2.3 million miles per hour. Now think of all of the energy of those atoms, those individual atoms that compose everything as those vibrations happening at the speed of light, all flowing in synchronicity together, in balance and harmony, in that magical symphony we depend upon for our life, flowing through the universe. Then realize how lucky we are to be one of those magical flows of energy and life in this reality at this moment in time. Now think about it. Is it important to live and move in love, balance, and harmony with these magical, natural symphonies or flows, and ensure that they survive and thrive if you wish to survive and thrive yourself? These magical symphonies or flows of life are based on love and the natural wisdom of nature and the universe. They are based on connectivity, oneness, motion, change, vibrations, energy, giving and receiving, and love, which is the creative force of the universe, and moving in balance and harmony with those flows. This way is the only way to survive and thrive. It is the way, which I've spent a lifetime searching for, collecting, and explaining in my teachings. They have been referred to as the teachings of Denis the teacher. As a result, it has often been referred to as Denism, after my name, Denis I. However, it is not mine. It's the truth and natural wisdom of nature. I am only the genie. The genius is out there, and you'll find it if you're observant, open-minded, and question everything in search of the truth. Never giving in to fear, trusting yourself, your intuition, your dreams, and all the techniques I will teach you. If you are empowered by and adapt this way of thinking and living your life, your future is assured and you will survive and thrive. Humanity's biggest problems are that they're stuck in a death-based paradigm. They live in fear and blind belief. They domesticated and indoctrinated into being slaves who give their lives and their power away, existing in subservience to self-serving power. So they unknowingly have become the flow of the polluted river, the garbage, the plastic bags rushing out to sea and killing all life on this planet. They have become the force that is destroying our world. Sitting in their lifeboats, doing nothing, is not going to save them from the flow to their demise. Paralyzed in fear, ignorance, complacency, and comfort, they do nothing and exist until their fast approaching end, accelerating themselves and all life in our world to extinction, just to make the rich richer and more powerful. And in the end, none of that makes a difference. Money and power are useless if you are dead or trying to survive in a dying or dead world. Extinction is the end of the flow of humanity and most life in this once magical, life-giving and nurturing planet. It's time to wake up, come alive, to step into your power, speak up and do something. If you suddenly realize that you're caught up in an unnatural flow, what do you have to do to avoid the inevitable? You need to get out of the main flow. Make your way to the riverbank and find safety on the land and begin to create sustainable living systems and a new way of life. When on the land, you will need to cater for your fundamental needs and grow from there. Safety, security, warmth, comfort, water, food security, love and belonging. And from then it only just gets better. So it might be tough in the beginning, but it's worth it. Living on the land, you need water and food security. And there are very simple ways to do it. Sustainable living systems are achievable, but nothing is possible if you do not wake up, realize the imminent danger to our survival, learn the knowledge, skills, and natural wisdom you need, and transition towards that happy, healthy, and sustainable future. That's your journey of awakening. It's best achieved by going on the quest for the truth, change, and transformation, which is what I am teaching here. I take you so much further on this journey to the age of reason and enlightenment in my course, Beyond the Age of Ignorance, the Quest for the Truth. It's a life-transforming course that empowers you with what you need to know to survive and thrive, then to take it much further in many other courses that follow. Thank you. Well, that's that and that. All right. Thank you very much for attending. It was wonderful. All right. Take it easy. Cheers. Bye.